Shabbat Shalom, welcome in our synagogue this morning. It is a special occasion, Josh's bar mitzvah. Certainly 13 years ago, when I was present at his baby blessing, he has changed a little while. I think that also the world has changed in the last 13 or so years. And this week's Sidra, Jethro or Yitro, it is surprising that the Rabbi saw fit to devote a Sidra to a man who is far from clearly defined in the Torah and who has relatively few entries to his name in the entire Pentateuch, let alone Wikipedia. So what do we know about him? Well, we know that he was a Midianite shepherd, that he was a priest, and his actual name Yitro means excellence or posterity. He's revered as a prophet in the Quran. Jethro is also Moses' father-in-law. He shows himself to be sympathetic to the God of the Hebrews and reveals great wisdom when advising his son-in-law about how best to manage the enormous task of the leadership of his people. And as we look at the world today, and eyes just look towards Munich, we can see how important it is to have a leadership, and to have leadership, as Josh has told us, as he would take advice, everybody should take advice. No leader is good until he takes advice, and indeed a leader is defined by the people that he surrounds himself with. Jethro recognized that Moses, who perhaps showed the signs of considerable nervous strain, he had to devolve some of his assumed and immense responsibilities. It was impossible for Moses to deal with every dispute himself. And so, at Jethro's suggestion, he set up minor judges to administer the courts, but he said the more serious cases Moses would still adjudicate. This structure would help to allow Moses to handle the important work assigned to him by God, and would also put in place a bureaucracy that would enable the Israelites to govern themselves long after Moses died. After delivering his sound advice, the benign priest of Midian returned to his own land, and he is not mentioned specifically again in the Torah. Jethro is held with affection by the rabbis because of his tie by marriage to Israel's greatest prophet, because of his support to Moses and his good advice, and the fact of his acknowledgement of the God of Israel. As Joshua explained in his Dvar Torah, he appreciates the fact that good advice is worth a pot of gold, and that we all should be able and prepared to listen to advice which is given with care, wisdom, and understanding. And certainly I have seen that Joshua has been listening to his parents, Jeffrey and Jane. I know he said in his Dvar Torah that they are control freaks, but which parent isn't? And which child does not complain about that? But so be it. At least they will remember us, what we try to do and achieve, and then will pass on to their children or to the next generation. And because, Joshua, of that advice, you now have and been here and stood here with real strength and power, and you were able to tell us how you think and what you think. Returning to our Torah portion, the terse biblical introduction to the great event described sends shivers and thrills down our spine, even as it mystifies. It was the event of the giving of the Ten Commandments. Mount Sinai was all in smoke because of the presence that had come down on. God was in the fire, and its smoke went up like the smoke of a lime kiln. The entire mountain trembled violently. Rashi, who was born in 1040, a renowned medieval French commentator, Jewish French commentator on the Bible and the Talmud, explains that Israelites actually heard only the first two commandments from God himself, and the rest they heard from Moses, who acted as a mediator. Rabbi Akiva, who lived in the 2nd century, gives an even more profound interpretation than that of Rashi or others. He says God helped Moses discover the music which would enable the divine words to take root in the heart and soul of each individual. This is an important element of leadership, and in many ways a must for all leaders, whether political or spiritual, to have or at least to recognize. This is even more important in times of crisis. Moses leading the children of Israel from Egypt in the desert and then eventually to the promised land must have been stressful, and he must have encountered, and indeed he did, many difficulties. Food and water were scarce. Skilled military leadership was required to ward off enemies. And of course his people were fearful and complaining of their lot all the time. Moses had to deal with the loud voices of dissent, followed by open rebellion of Korach and his followers. The people's cry for food and water eventually took its toll, and Moses, frustrated with his people, struck the rock to get water against God's command, a sin which prevented him entering the promised land. Loss of temper does not behow a leader. Patience and understanding, and of course, compromise are far more desired qualities. Let's hope that the world leaders today, when the world is challenged and challenging, will take patience and understanding of each other, so that you and I, our children and our future, can live in peace and harmony in whichever part of the world. Moses the interpreter, Moses the educator, Moses the rabbi must not only understand the divine message himself, we learn he must find the key to the soul of every Jew. And the way to do this is by expressing not only the sense of the Torah, but also its song. Just like Akiva said, the divine words to take root in the heart and soul of each individual. It will take time, it will take courage to bring the world from precipice to peace and understanding. Let's hope and pray that those that we have elected or were elected somewhere else will find that soul and that spirit and that song in their hearts.